Hello, and welcome to the Mother Flutter podcast. I'm your host, Sarah Sawakis, and today we're talking about life-changing habits. And I know there's a lot of stuff on the internet about life-changing habits and optimize your everything and be more productive and all this shit. But really, this is just a list of things that have made me feel less sad, less anxious, less alone, and really have given me just a foundation to fill my life with the things that I want and the things that I care about, and just reliably help me release the bullshit of daily life. Because no matter how many cold plunges you do, or, how many yoni eggs you stick up your hoo-ha, life will continue to throw bullshit at you every day. If not every day, every week. And I promise there's no cold plunges and there's no yoni eggs on this list. But if that's your thing, do you. More power to you. It's a free country if you're listening from the United States. For now, anyways. Okay, so the first ones, you're not going to like it, but it's true, and they make a huge difference. It's really just making exercise and nutrition a priority. I know you're not going to like it, and maybe you're going to say, I don't have time, or, my back hurts. But if you have internet and streaming services, you have time, you can make time. And in fact, what I often do, what helps me is to do my stretching or foam rolling or just some kind of movement, when I'm watching Netflix or I listen to a podcast on a run or a walk. I love listening to, my favorite podcasts when I go to the gym and lift weights. Finding exercise that you like is huge. And I'm going to preface this by saying, I was a fat kid. I was a very fat kid. I was 200 pounds in the 5th grade, and I was fat till I was 17. And I have done every freaking diet. I, struggled with an eating disorder for a while there. And, I've really just been through it in the world of diet and exercise, and have been able to maintain a healthy weight for, over a decade without doing anything too crazy. And what's helped me is just finding exercise that I really like, and finding, ways to eat vegetables and protein that taste good. And usually that's just barbecue sauce. People just get so all or nothing, about diet and exercise, where they think if they, slip up and have a whole pizza one night that it's over and they just have to go off the deep end. But it's really just about consistency and showing up for yourself. And I'll notice if I'm eating like crap, that I'll start to really, feel like crap. If I'm eating like crap, for a few days, or maybe on a long road trip, or sometimes traveling, you kind of just eat what you can when you can if you're super busy with work stuff or whatever. And same thing with exercise. I realize that, we do all get busy, and sometimes you skip a few days, but I'll really notice oh man, why am I so low? And then I'll realize, oh, I've been eating like shit, or, oh, I skipped a few days of exercise. So really just getting sweaty and just doing something fun. I take dance classes. I love to do that. I love strength training. That's probably been the most effective workout in all of my, insane searching over the years. Having been, on both ends of the spectrum as a, big fatty, and then somebody struggling with an eating disorder. And now I'm somewhere in between that. But all that to say, I've really, really tried a lot. And I love weightlifting because I think it probably transformed my body the most, and it allowed me to eat more. Not a crazy amount more, but yeah. And it's also just, it's fun to like see yourself progress. And I feel the same way about, going to yoga or going to dance classes. Like, oh, I couldn't do that before, and now I can do that. So yeah, just like finding something that's fun. And if you're like really social, exercise classes or, dance classes or whatever can be a great way to like make it fun. If you hate running, like don't run, If you hate salads, like don't eat salads. Like it doesn't have to be that complicated, and you don't have to, all these extreme diets, I'm not going to eat, carbs or, any sugar or whatever, and I always lose weight this way. And it's like, okay, well then why do you keep having to do it? Like, it's not sustainable. And even though, it can be really sexy to want to like have really quick results, if they don't last, it's just not worth it. And I think that just goes for anything in life, really. I worked in sales for a long time, and I feel the same way about sales. Yeah, you can scam someone essentially or sell them a bunch of shit they don't need and make a quick buck, but like it's better to build trust and like have a customer long term that keeps coming back. Like that person's going to spend more money over time than someone you make a quick buck from. And so I feel like that's just kind of anything in life, like slow and steady and consistent is really the way to get long-term results. So find healthy food that you enjoy. Don't worry about being perfect. And same with exercise, if you hate lifting weights, like you don't have to do that. I'm sure there's other ways to build strength that, don't involve that. Just figure out a way to make it work for you, because it makes a really big difference in your mental health, confidence, the way you sleep, the way your brain functions, keeps you out of, yes, healthy food is expensive. Yes, a gym membership, is an expense. I don't have a gym membership. I use the gym at my apartment and I do workouts at home, but it's more expensive to, end up with all these medical issues because you didn't take care of your health. So I just think that's so important, and it's something that, we can take for granted. So take care of your body, because it's going to take you everywhere, and your mind too. So yeah, that's been huge for me. The next one is therapy. And this comes with the caveat of not all therapy is good therapy. I think that a lot of people end up as therapists because they have, their own issues. And I don't think that just because they have a credential that they should automatically be trusted, just like anybody else in any field. And I think that sometimes you're just not going to have good chemistry with somebody, and you're not going to feel comfortable opening up to that person. Or, if you're really attracted to your therapist, I don't necessarily think that's the best environment, to be regularly going to see someone, because it kind of muddies the water a little bit. I always tell people I liked BetterHelp because they could, you can just like very anonymously unmatch with a therapist. Like they'll match you with somebody. I got really lucky and I matched with somebody that it worked really well with right away. But I could have, had it not been working, you can very like discreetly just be like, this isn't working, and they'll match you with somebody else until you find a good match. And they have a, I believe like income, affordable plan that is, what do you call it? Aligned with how much money you make. So there are affordable options out there. If money is a constraint, and there's different forms of therapy too. I I have a previous episode where I talk about the most beneficial therapies that I've tried. So EMDR, I am a huge advocate for EMDR. It totally changed my life. CBT is like general talk therapy for the most part. And then I've done equine therapy, which also completely changed my life. And then psychedelic assisted therapy. So I think those are all really good ones. I found my current therapist who I've been with for years. She's just so awesome, helps me put things into perspective. I found her on emdria.org. And even if you're not sure you want to do EMDR, you don't have to. Like, these therapists on emdria.org are just certified in that as an option. So a lot of the times when I meet with my therapist, a majority of the time at this point, we don't do EMDR, we just talk. And, you know, the stigma around mental health is disappearing, guys. Like, it's, you know, why it was there in the first place is, you know, definitely a rabbit hole that I would like to explore in later episodes. But I feel like if you go to therapy, you're healthier than the people who refuse to go to therapy, because it shows a willingness to grow and change and evolve and be wrong, as opposed to saying, "Nah, I'm good. You know, I've got it all figured out." Like, who in this life honestly has it all figured out? I think anyone who says they do is a big fat liar, or completely deluding themselves, or probably a scammer. I feel like a lot of scammers have it all figured out, quote unquote. So, yeah, I love therapy because I get, you know, checked on my bullshit. Like, I think a lot of times we just carry so many bad habits and thought patterns for how we perceive things. You know, we often perceive things very personally. Sometimes we can really just anticipate the worst in outcomes, and it can be really helpful to have somebody with a lot of life experience who understands, you know, human nature, human psychology, and the brain, and, you know, your past experiences, your past traumas, and how that shapes your current reality, and be able to call you on your bullshit. Like, you know, is that really true, or is this just a thought pattern that has emerged from X, Y, and Z? And it can really just help you see things differently, and just get things off your chest that, you know, maybe you're ashamed of, or, you know, you're scared to talk about, or you don't have anyone in your life that you feel comfortable talking about them with. There's just a lot of power in being able to, like, release that and just, like, not hold it in. But again, not all therapists are good therapists. And I think that, you know, definitely, like, most therapists are going to be willing to have that, like, initial intake interview where you can have a conversation on the phone. I had a therapist that broke up with me after a couple of sessions, but it was because I had asked her, you know, I have some complicated family dynamics that I know are not, you know, typical. And I had asked her, like, you know, do you have experience with this type of, you know, dynamic and situation specifically? And she was a little bit younger, and I tend to prefer older therapists who've just generally had more life experience, more experience in their career. And, you know, at first she said, yeah, you know, I do, I feel comfortable, like, exploring this with you. And then after a couple sessions, she was like, you know what, like, I thought about it, and I really don't feel like I'm going to be the best match for you. And I just, like, I really respected her doing that, because it like allowed me to find my current therapist who, you know, does have experience with what I needed help with. And I mean, I've been seeing her for 2 years, and no, I think longer than that now, like 3 years. And yeah, she's just been, like, heaven sent. I know that sounds dramatic, but we're a very good match. And she, you know, gets me She calls me on my bullshit. She won't just tell me what I want to hear. Yeah, so find a good one. And there's just no shame in it anymore, you know? It's like everybody should be going to therapy. And I don't think you don't have to do it every week, you know? Right now I'm doing like a once a month check-in. And that's cool. Sometimes there'll be periods where you want to go every week. Sometimes there'll be periods where, you know, you don't want to go at all. But yeah, therapy has changed my life for the better. Absolutely. And I've had good therapists and I've had bad therapists. And I just really encourage people to vet therapists and find a good match for you. The next one is community. And so this is like multifaceted. So I have definitely always been a bit of like a loner in the sense that I love my alone time and I need, you know, a decent amount of alone time to feel sane and to feel my best and to recharge my batteries. I always had friends. I always had like a small circle of people and I make friends easily. But I definitely am very comfortable spending like a lot of time alone. And equine therapy actually kind of helped me realize that I was doing a lot of like isolating. So I think that alone time is necessary and healthy, but too much of it like just doesn't serve us. Like we are meant to be in community. We are meant to connect with each other. We are meant to, you know, have physical touch. It doesn't have to be romantic. We are meant to look each other in the eyes, you know, hear each other's voices. Yeah. And so I think that actively, you know, pursuing community has really, you know, changed my life. And not letting too much time go between, you know, seeing friends and making it a priority to see friends and making it a priority to, you know, connect with friends, to go out, to be around community, to be with people. I think that it's just easier than ever to be isolated right now with social media and with just, you know, I mean, this economy, like a lot of people I know are working all the time just to pay bills. And I can certainly relate to that as well, too. But we need people, and isolation, you know, I think solitude is a good thing, but we need people, and we need to prioritize people in our lives and be interested in, you know, people besides ourselves and our selfies. And I think that we need to, you know, give as well. So I put in parentheses like service, you know, I think just doing little things for others has selfishly made me feel a lot better. And it's so true. Yeah, if you feel like shit, like, you know, go do something for somebody else and it'll take you like right out of it. And I think that's so much of like depression. And depression is real. It's a real thing, but so much of it, you know, in my experience of depression is too much focus like on the self and your problems and your sadness and your trauma and you and the way people see you and you know, and it's just like that's not it, guys. That's not it. So even if it's something small like, you know, baking cookies for the, you know, people in your apartment office or your coworkers, or, you know, giving $1, giving a few bucks to somebody begging on the street can be helpful. You know, donating money or, you know, if you have excess clothes or books or whatever, just like donating that will make you feel good and give you purpose and ultimately feel better. Because if we get stuck, you know, worrying about our own problems too much and just like ruminating on that, we're hurting ourselves and we're hurting others, because if you have something to give, it can really make a huge difference in someone's life. And I've been in situations, not that long ago, where I had nothing. I didn't know where my next meal was coming from. Last year I was in line at the food bank. Never fucking thought I'd see myself there. I had a cushy ass tech job. I was in my overpriced, vintage looking band t-shirt in line with the homeless people. And it really fucking gave me some perspective that, none of us are that far from being one of those people. And I know that it's more complicated than that. And, luckily I had friends that were able to help me and got through that situation, thankfully. But we're just, we have more in common than we do not in common. And we just have to take care of each other. And I think that our world has just become so individualist and all about, my pleasure and how can I get more pleasure and more likes and more, money and, more of a dopamine hit and like all this shit. But like at the end of the day, that's not fulfilling. It's a hole that you can't fill with those things. It is never ending. And we have to take care of each other and we have to be with each other, guys. I think that's what I'm trying to say. That perspective has changed my life. Whew, I did not expect this to get heavy. So, but here we are. I also have on here spirituality. So I have talked about this in other episodes, but I really struggled with religion growing up. I'm not anti-religion. It never resonated with me. Like in my heart, God was not somebody who wanted to, punish certain people. Or, in my heart, God was not, making people fearful of his wrath. Like that just never resonated with me. And I, even as a kid was like, this is a scam, right? But just because there's a few bad apples, who have put a, just bad name on religion, it's not all great. It doesn't mean that like you can't access spirituality. So I access spirituality through nature. Primarily, that is when I feel close to spirituality, God, the universe, whatever you want to call it, is when I'm in nature and spending time in nature. And I do talk to, God, quote unquote, the universe. I don't even think I say God. Sometimes I do, or sometimes I say love, or, whatever you want to call it. It doesn't matter. If you do, resonate with the religion, like, cool. But having just a belief in something greater than, this physical world that we know and love has just made me feel so much more at ease and just, made me just trust the process of life so much more. And I think that when you believe, like you'll start to, it's like you get what you put into it, So if you tell yourself, oh, there's nothing, God isn't real, nothing matters, this is all chaos, then that's what you're going to see, But if you believe in something greater, you're going to see signs of that too. And, there's been studies after studies showing that people with a spiritual connection or a spiritual life are happier and more fulfilled. As humans, like we seek meaning in life, and spirituality is a way to, find and seek meaning. and you don't have to subscribe to a religion. Like, you can choose how your spiritual life looks. Like, you get to do it. Like, you get to pick what makes sense to you. What do you believe in? What resonates with you in your heart and your soul? What do you know to be true about what's bigger than us? Yeah, I felt like, I don't know, I always kind of touched on, I always had a spiritual life, but it really, really improved when I started going to 12-step meetings, probably in 2021. And I think there's a lot of good in 12-step meetings. I think they can definitely be like culty, and I do not subscribe to everything about them. But I do think that, the higher power thing was really helpful to me. And that's not, if you listen to my other episodes, you'll hear more about my spiritual life. And everyone's is different. But yeah, it's really helped me. And I think as humans, we just need that faith and trust. And I think a lot of it is connected to manifesting and your thoughts, becoming things, and your heart's desires and your soul's desires, and listening and looking for synchronicities and signs. Like, I just think there's so much more happening beneath the surface of what we can see. And I think a lot of that is spirituality. If that makes sense. Hopefully that makes sense. Whew, okay. The next one, radical responsibility. So what I mean by this is just accepting everything that has happened to you. Everything in your life right now, even the shitty things, especially the shitty things, like taking responsibility for it. And I'm not victim blaming, but when you live your life from the mentality of a victim, you're just hurting yourself. I love the phrase, what is it? It's trauma is not your fault, but it is your responsibility. So, maybe a lot of the adversity you faced in your life isn't your fault. You had no control over it. Maybe you were a true victim, in a court of law. But living your life with that mentality is only going to hold you back. So taking responsibility for your life, your circumstances. And, yes, that certain people have, privilege and are going to get ahead for certain things. I know that I am benefiting from, my own privilege in whatever ways that looks like. And I've, had the reverse. I've had a lot of adversity too, and things that have held me back. We all have those things, but being a victim and, approaching your life as a victim is just going to keep you miserable and stuck. And it is an excuse to, drink or drug or just numb or, not do what you want to do. But when you take responsibility for your life and clean up whatever messes are there to clean up, and again, trauma's not your fault, but it is your responsibility. Meaning, just because you have trauma doesn't mean it's not an excuse to be an asshole. I mean, it isn't, and it isn't like, is that how you want to go through your life, or do you want to take care of this and like come out stronger? Yeah. So take responsibility. Same with relationships. Like, so many people, oh, this person was so toxic and blah, 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 blah. But like, it always is two people. So it's, did you choose somebody who, unconsciously you knew it was going to play out in this, unhealthy way? Or what did you contribute that is like maybe your bad habits to that relationship not working out? So yeah, just taking responsibility for your side of the street. Like, it's so easy to blame other people, but ultimately, like, we're the ones in charge of our lives, and if you tell yourself you're not, it's not going to go very well, most likely. So, steer the ship in the direction you want to go. Take responsibility. The next one, journaling. So I have written every day since I was a kid. I'm very lucky in this way that I've just always been obsessed with like pen to paper, writing stories, writing about my day, reflecting on my thoughts. I love that I have these records I can go back on and look at and see, how I've grown, and like even just people that frankly, my brain couldn't contain my brain, like I drank a lot as a kid and like, you started using drugs pretty early. So my memory isn't the greatest, and I love being able to like have these, records to look back on. I don't do it often, but it's just nice to have. And it also just like, I don't know, I do it every morning. It helps me put things into perspective. I can kind of like loosely plan out my day, what I want to accomplish that day, focus on, and I write down my dreams. I am a big believer in, our dreams is our subconscious, communicating to us and telling us kind of what we maybe need to work on or what's going on in our heads that's kind of pulling the strings. Our subconscious is always pulling the strings. So I think dreams are a way to see really like behind that curtain. So I like to write down my dreams and analyze them and see what's going on there. And it's just really helped me like get my thoughts out onto paper, helps them not just like roll around in my head too much. So I've found this extremely helpful. So the next thing on the list is gratitude. And this has been huge for me because again, it's so easy to like focus on what we don't have and what's going wrong in our life. And like, we're always, there's always going to be problems. Like there's never in the history of life is like everything going to be going 100%. Like there's always going to be something that could improve. And I think gratitude is just a really awesome way to train your brain to like be appreciative of all of how lucky we are. Like if you're listening to this podcast right now, like you're pretty fucking lucky compared to a lot of the world. You have access to the internet and maybe even headphones and running water, clean water, and all that shit, So gratitude is just really life-changing. I try to write at least a few things down that I'm grateful for every morning. And anytime I'm in just like a funk, it really helps me to just gain perspective and focus on how lucky I am to, be able to, be drinking out of like a fucking sparkly ass disco ball hydro flask. You know what I mean? Like I have fresh flowers on my table. Like I have friends who love me. Like I, have enough money to pay my bills and get laser hair removal. Like I'm a fucking lucky bitch, And it's helpful to be reminded of that because, there's a lot of other shit that's not going right. But I feel like what you appreciate appreciates. There's that saying, what you appreciate appreciates. And I think that's true. So, focus on what's going well, The last one, no, there's two more. I might have to do a part 2 here. But so the next one is meditation. And I have done this on and off for years. I am pretty consistent with doing like 10 to 15 minutes every day. I didn't do it today, though. I'm going to be honest. I didn't. And that's probably why I'm feeling a little bit like anxious and nervous recording this. But yeah, it makes a huge difference. Like just breathing, like if there's the most valuable thing, my therapist has taught me is like how to breathe and be embodied and like feel things in my body. And it's just incredible how like nobody teaches you how to do that. And it's completely like can change your heart rate, blood pressure, like all these physical, very real things, and help you think more clearly and be in the present moment, which is so helpful for anxiety or depression, right? Because I've heard that anxiety is like, being in the future, like future tripping and what could go wrong. And depression is like always about the past and like, oh, well, this happened and, this happened and, I'm so shitty because blah, blah, blah. And like the present, being in the present is kind of like most of the time, there's nothing wrong in the present moment, we just, our brains just like to psych ourselves out sometimes. And meditation is a way to just continually practice being in the present moment. And the more you do it, the better you get. And you don't have to do it perfectly. You don't have to do anything on this list perfectly. I do it badly almost every time. Almost every time I daydream and think about other stuff, but sometimes I get those glimpses of just being in the present and being just breathing and just feeling really good. And even just practicing like deep rhythmic breath is really helpful in so many ways, and in so many situations I can calm myself down with just a few deep breaths. It's incredible, and it's free. It's totally free. So even if you do it badly, it still works. I recommend it. You only need 10 minutes, even 5. You can go longer. You can do the guided meditations on YouTube. But breathing is the shit. Okay, this is the last one for today, but time in nature. Something just fell. Interesting. I connect again to spirituality in nature. My nervous system just feels so much calmer in nature. I want to take deep breaths because the air is just so clean and delicious in nature. Just the sounds. There's just something about it. And nature has been existing way longer than humans and like doing just fine. So I think we have a lot to learn from nature too. Like I like observing nature and the wisdom in nature. I know I'm getting real hippy dippy on you, but that's who I am. But I do think, because we're nature, right? Like nature made us. And, I think there's value in understanding that you're not going to bloom all year. Nothing does, and like you're going to go through cycles where, your leaves are different colors. Sometimes they're a little tiny bud, just waiting to escape. And sometimes they're lush and green and abundant. And then they change colors, and then they get crispy and fall off. And then, you go dormant. You're in a deep sleep. Like we go through cycles. And I think that our culture wants us to go against our nature and just be productive and producing and blooming and thriving like all the time, all year round. And it's just like not possible, and like also just like not it. Like we move in cycles as well. And nature is, I just always feel better after a walk in nature. I try to do it every day because I just always feel better. I never go for a walk out in the woods and I'm like, I wish I didn't do that. It always makes me feel better. And it's just beautiful and calming, and like, I don't know, we spend so much time on our screens and just with so much noise and chaos that it's really nice to just get in some peace. So yeah, okay. Might need a part 2 because there's a lot of other things that have helped, but my goal for this podcast has always been to just, share the things that people way smarter than me have helped me learn along the way. I've spent a lot of time and a lot of money trying to feel better in every way I can. And these are the things that I've learned that have helped me. And I just want to share that with people because other people have shared it with me and it really helped my life. And so I hope that some of these help you too. And I appreciate you listening to the Mother Flutter podcast. And again, it's hard to make changes in life. It's really hard. I've made a lot recently, and it's taken me like a month each to adjust to each new change. So go easy on yourself and like don't try to do everything at once and then be mad at yourself when you can't maintain that. Like, I think it's just, do something small that you can really like commit to. And then you can add from there, If you're the type of person that's like, fuck it, overhaul, doing them all at once, starting tomorrow, like, and that works for you, cool. But if it doesn't, like, don't feel bad. And again, I don't even always take my own advice. Some days I eat M&Ms and Sour Patch Kids and just like don't move my ass. And then I'm like, why do I feel like shit? Oh, because I was eating M&Ms and Sour Patch Kids and didn't move my ass all day. That makes sense. But yeah, I mean, I'm not perfect all the time. And I think that people, the all or nothing thing, it's not all or nothing is what I'm trying to say. So even if you, slip up, just keep getting back on, just keep showing up for yourself and keep improving. And a slip up is just a slip up, it doesn't undo the work that you've already done. So, okay, I'm going to go. I love you guys. And thank you so much for listening to the Mother Flutter podcast. I will see you next time.